welcome to the Pikku Kimalainen knitting podcast. My name is Rachel Mariama and I'm your host. It's been a while, it's been a couple months since my last episode, and that's just because I've had a lot going on in my personal life, and I've had to take many trips back up to Montana to, take care of some things. So I'm back finally. I feel like I finally sort of recovered from all that travel, and I have a lot to talk about, which is why I'm only going to talk about my works in progress this episode, just to keep me from feeling too overwhelmed. So anyways, the first work in progress is a pair of mittens, and I recently started these and I'm most excited about them out of everything here, so I thought I'd talk about them first. They are the Selbu mittens by Reindeer knits, and they are knit out of 100% wool. I actually purchased this wool to go with a pattern that was being sold with the wool. However, it was still getting test knit, which I thought was quite strange. I was under the impression that the pattern was already released, so I had to get it in a special email, and I think I might eventually knit that pattern out of a different type of wool, because when I first saw this yarn I thought about the Selbu mittens. But it's an amazing rustic yarn, and it is made out of Missoula grown purebred Icelandic wool. So Missoula is a town in Montana, and I did purchase a lot of yarn while I was there. So I was a little naughty, but I wanted to, hoard as much yarn as I could while I was there, because I really miss Montana, and every time I visit there I want to stay. But I knit the mittens on a slightly smaller gauge than the pattern called for. I went a needle size down. I can't remember the gauge at the moment, but I'll put that in. And I wanted these to be a little extra tight, because I do have quite small, thin hands, and I really hate it when mittens sort of have a little extra room and tend to move around my hand. So I have the first one finished. I just have to cast off the thumb and then cast on the next one. I probably got this done in about, I'd say 2 nights worth of knitting got me this far, and I put them down for a bit because I have some other things that I had to knit on gift-wise. I feel like I haven't gotten a lot done in these past couple months, but I just have to remind myself that most of the knitting I've been doing has been gift knitting, or designing a few things which I never complete. So a lot of the stuff I have been working on has either been frogged back and restarted, or given away. When I was in Montana, I gave my mom a sweater that I had steeked and turned into a cardigan, so I feel like that's a lot of work I remember, but I just don't get the benefit of wearing. But it's okay, she'll get more wear out of it than I will anyways, since she lives where it's colder. A minute. My cat's playing with my feet. I also got 2 kittens while I was gone. I don't know what she's doing. Oh my god. Salmiaki! Okay. She's purring, so she wants to be pet, but she's a little squirmy. This is Salmiaki. She's the female of the 2 cats that I got. And she's really, how would you describe her? She's really hyperactive, but she's really cute too. she also talks a lot. Here, go on my lap. She just wants to play. The next thing I've been working on is a sweater, and I actually had cast this off and did ribbing on the sweater a few rows before I should have started, and I sort of made it into a short sleeve sweater for the summer. However, I think I would enjoy the sweater a bit more as a, you know, proper full-size garment, and I do expect to move back to Montana sometime soon, so I do want proper sweaters I can wear and not just short-sleeved ones. It's pretty hot in Tennessee, so that was the only way I was going to be able to wear it. But this is the Guthrie Sweater by Caitlin Hunter, and I just ripped back the ribbing and put everything on needles and stitch holders, so I think I have to step away to show you what it looks like. And I'm just using scrap yarn for this sweater, yarn that I got from, you know, yarn swaps, and just bits and pieces I had lying around. Right now I'm knitting a beekeeper's quilt, but a lot of the scrap yarn I have now doesn't match the current look I'm going for the quilt. I'm trying to stick with mainly natural yarns and plain colored yarns, so all of my, you know, slightly more colorful yarns will go in the sweater. However, I do think I'm going to maybe dye this sweater and just put it in a bunch of burnt orange dye so that the lighter parts will, I don't know, absorb some of the orange dye, and I mean, it won't really affect the dark color in the sweater, so I'm not too worried about that. But the more I wear this sweater, the more I realize I would prefer the lighter contrast color to be orange, and luckily all of the yarn is relatively, all of the colors are relatively close to each other, so I think I can get away with dyeing it orange without too much going wrong. If not, that's what duplicate stitch is all about. I can just go back over the mistakes and fix it with some orange yarn. But I'm going to complete knitting the sweater in the scrap yarn before I throw it into the dye pot, just to see how it turns out, and maybe take a couple photos with it like that. The next thing I am almost finished with is my socks on a plain socks. You've seen these before, so there's not much to say about them. I did lose a little bit of steam on these because I'm finding out I'm not that big of a fan of self-striping sock yarn. I just don't like the look of striped socks, but these will be nice cozy socks. It was a bit of an experiment with self-striping sock yarn just to see if I liked more neutral colors, but I mean, I'm not going to be wearing these outside of my house really, or showing them off, so I think they'll just stay as, you know, socks that will go underneath my boots and jeans, or socks that I wear around the house rather than show off. But I do really love the yarn base. The yarn is by Bergère de France, Gumi 50. I can't quite remember the colorway, but they do have other more, you know, plain sock yarns that aren't self-striping, and I love the way this yarn feels. It is kind of harsh compared to a lot of other sock yarns that I've knit with, but I do have a feeling it's going to be very hard wearing, so I might order some more of this yarn in different colors. I have just a couple more repeats on the next sock before it is finished. I did a German short row heel, and I did a 2x2 rib, and I used a contrast color for the cast off, which is just one of my hand dyed scrap yarns that I dyed black. So The next thing I have to talk about is actually a gift knit, one of many this year. I think this will be the last gift knit I do for a while, maybe a year or so, because I'm really losing my motivation. I think between gift knitting and just the climate where I'm at, it's really hot and I can't wear any of my hand knits. I think that's really taking a toll on my motivation to knit. But it is the Reindeer sweater by, who's it by? Jill Wick. This is the Reindeer sweater by Jill Wick. I almost have the first panel finished. And it's mainly knit out of scrap yarn that I got. The center color is knit from a yarn that I purchased from the Polka Dot Sheep Shop in Whitefish, Montana. And then this light color you see is actually two strands of yarn held together. One is a cashmere thread of yarn that I got from an old sweater I scrapped from a thrift shop. I really don't think it's gonna want to focus. And come on. Okay. And this single ply yarn that I have is actually the one creating those little blips of pink, and that is an indie dyed yarn by Akara Yarns, and I've purchased from her many times before. I love her yarn and I love her work, and I think it adds a little extra cute factor. The person I'm knitting it for said she wanted sort of girly, feminine, neutral, so this is what I came up with. I'm not sure how it's going to turn out overall, but so far I'm liking it. The baby is already born. That's how behind I am. But I figure it'll still be good for winter. I think it might be a little bit big for the baby, but I could always felt it and shrink it up a bit. But it should be good for this winter. The next thing I'm working on is a design project, and I think this is all I'm going to show for now. But right now I'm just knitting this off the top of my head. And I was really inspired by Pom Pom Magazine's new issue, which is moon themed. I was so excited when I saw that. I ordered it right away. But this is what I have going right now. The light contrast color is knit from just some yarn I scrapped from a sweater from the thrift store. It's the same yarn I used in my reindeer sweater. And then this dark contrast color is actually not a sock yarn. It's a yarn made by Holstgarn. It's a Holstgarn Super Soft. This isn't the exact colorway, but the colorway I do have is called Coffee. And I don't really feel like showing it off because it is quite late. And you're not really going to see all the subtleties in the yarn, but I absolutely love this. So yeah, that's what I have so far. It's knit on size 00 needles, and that's all I'm saying. I'm pretty excited. This might be the first pattern I actually publish. I'm not sure. I'm still trying to build up my confidence regarding that. But I would really like to start writing down some of the designs I've come up with, and maybe potentially be able to support myself at least a little bit off of pattern writing, so I don't have to work so much. Because I work a lot. I work 12-hour days most of the time, and it's taking a toll. So the next thing I'm going to talk about, just to get it out of the way, is acquisitions. If you're not interested in that, feel free to click away. I know I usually don't stick around for acquisition sections of podcasts, but I do have some slightly more interesting things other than yarn. While I was in Montana, I did actually purchase a set of Locket needles. So this is the Locket driftwood needle set, and I'm absolutely in love. Since I do prefer wooden needles over metal ones, I think I might actually start cycling through my needle collection, because I do have most sizes, but they do tend to get lost just because they're not in a cohesive set. And I don't have interchangeable needles, which these needles are interchangeable, which is very important for me. I'm going to start cycling through these. I think maybe my next paycheck I'll get a set of their DPNs, so I can give away my older needles and have that clutter you know, out of my house. But I wanted to give these a try just so I didn't you know, have a ton of, you know, random needles floating around, and I found that these were a good replacement. So this is what the set looks like. Okay, first of all, I absolutely love the packaging. I find that I tend to not like a lot of the packaging that comes with needles. It's kind of, I hate to say tacky, but it's just not my style. This is very you know, plain and elegant. I absolutely love the fabric, and I love the look of the needles. You have a pouch down here. Actually keep the interchangeable cords here. The cords are quite stiff. I actually really like stiff cords. The cords come in 3 different sizes, and they're perfect for knitting shawls, hats, and sweaters. So, oh, this is a silica pack. I was trying to figure out what this was. It comes with some replacement parts, and those little needles with the loops on the end are actually for tightening the joint between the cord and the needle. Here you can see some replacement joints with a little hole in the center, and these come in handy, and they keep the cords from screwing off of the needles, which is very helpful. I found with other interchangeables, the joint between the cord and the needle can sometimes catch, but I haven't experienced this problem yet with this set of needles. I did experience it once, however, that was when I first got them and didn't tighten them properly. But the joint is incredibly smooth, and that's really important for me. And the needle doesn't have the sharpest tip, but I also like that because I have a really bad habit of splitting yarns when I'm knitting color work or doing cables, which I know sometimes sharp needles are preferred, but overall I think this set is perfect for me, so I'm really happy with it. I'm really happy with I'm really happy with all of the different features it has, and the packaging is nice and sleek. I can definitely put this on my shelf without having it stick out too much, which is very important for me. I like everything to look nice, and I do feel like this is something I can actually put on my bookshelf and not, you know, put away in a cupboard and be ashamed of. Not that I'm ashamed, I'm just kind of picky with certain things, but I do think I'm going to purchase the other sets to complete my whole collection and then see where the gaps are. After that, I do think I will have to purchase some more smaller wooden needles because I don't think the sets come with those. So I might make my own little foldable package and just purchase some more wooden knitting needles from Knit Picks. Those do tend to be sort of disposable for me because I do tend to break these a lot because I have such a tight gauge. These are the only option I sort of have for keeping my hands relaxed, but at times I do break them just by accidentally leaving them out. I accidentally left them out in a basket on the floor, and one of my cats chewed up one of the needles, so these are sort of like cannon fodder for me. So if I could make myself a set where I just have a whole bunch of each size going up to probably 3mm needles, that would probably be the best option for me. I do think I'll get myself another set of Hiya Sharps for sock knitting, but I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've knit with those, and I do tend to prefer DPNs, but we'll see. The next thing I have to show is also a sort of non-yarn fiber acquisition, and that is the newest release of Pom Pom Magazine, and I'm absolutely in love. I love all the models, I love all the projects, and the way everything is laid out. I really appreciate it. I love that the pages are, you know, quite thick. It's almost like thick cardstock that they have, but it's still very easy to pick up. I find with some of the more natural papers that magazines use, it's difficult for me to pick up if I have dry hands, but these are coated, so it makes it easy to grab, and you can sort of see the glare off of it. Overall, I think this magazine is an amazing piece. I love all the patterns in it. The one thing that caught my eye right away was this sweater. The sweater is by Catherine Clark, and it's the Eashel sweater, I believe. I think out of everything, this will be the first thing I knit from this magazine, just because all of the patterns are so beautiful. I really appreciate the first section because you can show off everything without showing off the pattern notes. The second thing I want to knit is Sky Map by Emily Foden, and it generally is just a stockinette tube, and then you go over it with embroidery, and it sort of links the tube together, and it's an absolutely beautiful piece. I do think I might take a trip down to House of Yarn in Nashville to see if they have any you know, special skeins I could purchase for this. But everything here is so beautiful. Another thing I might knit are the Cinna mittens. And I think those are the main three things that first caught my eye. Of course, there's so many other beautiful patterns in here, like Moon Dust, and it also comes with mitts. It's not just a hat. So the pattern Moon Dust, which are this hat and mitt set, is especially intriguing because it's inspired after the Astronaut Footprints that you can not still see on the moon today, but still exist on the moon today. Here's a little excerpt. The first astronaut footprints are still visible on the moon's surface after nearly 50 years. He's interrupting me. Oh, fine. This is Grendel. He's a different cat than the one I showed earlier, and he's a bit more relaxed than Salmiakki, if you can see. I mean, he's just a loaf, pretty much, and he's the one I share the most photos of, because he's very relaxed and photogenic. I mean, you can pretty much do anything with him. I mean, you could put him upside down and he doesn't care. He's pretty cute. I have to say he is becoming my favorite. Just because he's so relaxed all the time. He's so chill all the time. And I don't know, I was actually, when I went to go rescue them, I was actually just gonna bring him home. But Samyaki was meowing so much because it was her brother. So I brought her home too. And she's a sweetheart. She's just a bit more energetic. And I'm really happy I got both of them. So they have each other's company. Look at this guy. He's getting a little bit of a gray belly. And he's starting to get these white spots on his head. I'm not sure if you can see. There's one right there. So I have a feeling he's going to get a bunch of white speckles, or at least I hope he does, because then he'd look like a little star map. Okay, he's going to sit in my lap from now on. But this set is especially intriguing because it's inspired after the astronaut footprints that you can still see on the moon today, even after 50 years, and they remain there just because of the absence of atmosphere and erosion on the moon, which I thought that was a pretty neat concept to be inspired by. So those are the moon dust mitts and hat set. And there's a lot of other slightly more minimalistic knits which really complement the entire piece. This is by Anna Standberg, and it's called the Luna Sweater. This is the Artemis Sweater. You're gonna have to just order a magazine yourself because everything in here is so beautiful. This is the Hectate shawl. I definitely don't think I'll have time to knit all of it, all of the pieces from here, but I wish I did. So the last acquisitions I have are just yarn acquisitions I got from Montana, and also SSK. I went to the SSK marketplace and I got to see a lot of people I really look up to, like Kemper Ray of Junk Yarn. I actually purchased one of her skeins. This is the skein by Junk Yarn, and it is the colorway Ray. It is a 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon base, and this might be a pair of socks for my boyfriend. I'm not sure. It's quite colorful for my taste, but I think it will still work well as a neutral in a colorwork pair of socks, just because it does have mainly white and brown colors in it, but then also these beautiful blue speckles and red speckles. The next thing I got at SSK was a skein of yarn from Stranded Dye Works by Amy. She also has a podcast called the Stranded Podcast. This yarn is 80-10-10 superwash merino nylon cashmere fingering weight yarn. The colorway is Eraser, and I think I might knit a pair of socks out of this. I do have a feeling I'm going to knit the Alyeska sweater by Caitlin Hunter out of this and have this as the major white section of the sweater. But I did not check what weight of yarn you need for that sweater. I might have to hold this double if it is a fingering weight. The next skein of yarn I got from SSK is by Gail's Art. This is her Wonder Sock base. And I was really attracted to one of her plain tweed bases, but it was undyed and I thought it was SSK, so I might as well indulge in some indie dyed yarns. So this is a very beautiful yarn. You probably are not getting all of the colors, but it's on a sort of, you know, gray, slate gray base, and then it has some spots of orange and purple speckles. This is 75% superwash blue face wool and 25% nylon. I also purchased yarn from Once Upon a Corgi. This did fall off the shelf, so the cats did start playing with it. It'll be fine, but I wish I rescued it sooner. This is her warm caramel colorway on the Aeron base, which is 85% superwash BFL, 15% NEPs. It's a fingering weight, and I'm going to knit a pair of socks out of these and potentially use it in a colorwork sweater if I have any scraps left over. I think I might just knit 2 at a time toe-up socks and then just knit it until I run out of yarn. The next thing I got was actually some fiber from Spotted Circus. This is a 70/30 Merino Firestar Moonshine base. And if you can, I don't think it'll pick it up, but it has a bit of stellina in there. And it's absolutely beautiful. I've spun up a little bit of it, but I'm used to spinning on a spinning wheel, so I decided this would be a good opportunity to buy a drop spindle. This is just a simple Crumb bottom whorl drop spindle, and I'm not that good at it. So this is a skein that I made up. It is just a simple 2-ply yarn, but it kind of is thick and thin. So in some places it's a bulky weight, in some places it's a fingering weight, and in some places it's a worsted weight. It's very uneven, but I'll find something to put it in. Maybe a scrappy sweater or scrappy colorwork hat. This is what my spinning usually looks like on a spinning wheel, but I don't own one. I used to spin on a friend's wheel. Oh my gosh. So it'll be good practice to spin up the rest of the fiber and hopefully get a better consistency. The next thing I got was actually something that shipped in before I left for Montana, and this is by Akara Yarns. And I actually purchased this with one other skein of her yarn, but it's already knit up. It was a sort of one-pot wonder. It had a it's just something she came up with off the bat, and it was absolutely beautiful. I knit it into my Reindeer baby sweater, and that is the very neutral but still colorful background you saw. But this is on her, this is the red, blue, and this is the red, blue stellina fingering weight base. So as you can see, it has a little bit of sparkle. It is 80% superwash merino and then 20% red and blue stellina. So some of the sparks in there are red and blue, if you can see that top one right there. So this is the Aztec Gold colorway, and I think I will knit this into another colorwork sweater. I'm really enjoying colorwork right now. Although I'm not quite sure about having yellow so close to my face, so I might actually make a pair of socks and mittens out of this. I find that because of my hair color and because of my skin color, I'm quite pink, and sometimes yellow just does not complement me at all, as much as I love it. When I do want to wear warm colors, I find that sometimes I can get away with burnt orange without it drowning out my complexion. But that is it. Oh, actually, never mind. I've got one more thing, and it's been already caked up because I was just playing around with a design project. But this is a skein of yarn that I purchased from the Polka Dot Sheep Shop in Whitefish, Montana. I saw there was a help wanted sign up there, and I I really wanted to just apply and work there because it's a really amazing, beautiful shop. Whitefish is right outside of Glacier National Park, so it's a really beautiful area to live in. I kind of am looking to move up there. I'm not sure yet, but if there is an opportunity that shows itself, I would love to, you know, live up there. Thank you for watching this episode. I hope the episodes become more regular. I think I might just start filming at night because my work schedule is really irregular. So you're distracting me. You can find me as Pikku Kimalainen on Instagram and Ravelry. There's a groups tab for this podcast, and also an introductions thread, so you can fill out a questionnaire if you would like to introduce yourself. Thank you for watching. Bye.